What in the heck is going on out there? You got Donald Trump, who I supported in the run up to the president election. I was right behind his causes, making some comments that I think maybe could have been timed better. And then the incident that took place in Australia yesterday. What's going on in the world? Honestly, I wish I could bring better talking points and a more positive message and story to you. At this point in time, I'm just going to pause.
Basic human decency to me. Yeah, Rob Reiner was murdered last night. Whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable.
I don't care what you think of that war. There is no justification, there's no reason for mowing down Jews.
But the Israelis say, no, we're allowed to kill 20,000 kids. And no one should be able to condemn that. But every Muslim on planet Earth have to condemn these lunatics as if these lunatics represent us.
Jack, I think it's very immoral that you couldn't just take one conversation about a shooting in Australia without comparing it to a war in Gaza.
90% of Muslims are peaceful and lovely and amazing, but if 10% wants to bring down the West, you're looking at a heck of a lot of people.
Jillian, I've had to sit here and listen to y'all go back and forth. Can I please make this point?
There seems to be this struggle inside the soul of Islam between those who believe in live and let live and those who believe in death to the infidels.
Every generation tends to think that our moment in history is as bad as it's ever been, that the struggles, divisions and tensions that we're wrestling with right now are uniquely pivotal. It's obviously not true, but that doesn't mean that everything is always getting better either. And sometimes, however temporarily, they are very clearly getting worse. Yesterday, father and son Islamists killed 15 people in a chilling anti-Semitic terrorist attack on Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah on Bondi Beach in Australia. The knee-jerk reaction of many on social media was again to blame all Muslims, but it very quickly emerged that one of the heroes of the day was Ahmed al-Ahmed, a 43-year-old Muslim fruit seller who risked his own life to save countless others. You're perfectly entitled to have a view that every immigrant from a Muslim country should be kicked out of the West. But you have to reckon with the fact that it's divisive and reductive, because people like Ahmed al-Ahmed, who is a Syrian immigrant to Australia, are exactly the type of people we should want in our countries, no matter which God they pray to. It should be possible to loathe and condemn anti-Semitism without resorting to Islamophobia, just as it should be possible to say BLM went much too far without being overtly racist, and that you disagreed with some of what Charlie Kirk said or believed without grotesquely celebrating his death as so many did. That was the position of Hollywood legend Rob Reiner, who along with his wife Michelle was murdered in horrific circumstances this weekend. When you first heard about the murder of Charlie Kirk, what was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, at the memorial they had, was exactly right.
The default position in the age of social media is tribal loathing. We've seen plenty of it on both sides this weekend, just as we saw it after the National Guard terror attack in DC, and again with the fraud scandal in Minnesota. We're seeing it in some of the reactions to the death of Rob Reiner, including an extraordinary statement just a few minutes ago from President Trump. It might make people feel better, but if they've any interest in living in a contented and genuinely united society, the truth is they're making it a lot worse. Well, joining me to debate this, founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, the host of Keeping It Real, Gillian Michaels, host of Democracy-ish, Wajaha Ali, and the journalist and host of the Emily Austin Show, Emily Austin, and Roland Martin, host of Unfiltered. Welcome to all of you. Look, I was going to start with the horrific attacks in Australia, and we'll come to those, obviously. But as we've come on air, Cenk Uygur, Donald Trump has gone on his Truth Social platform to talk about Rob Reiner. Now, I interviewed Rob Reiner on this show 3 months ago. And aside from what he just said about Charlie Kirk, as we just heard, which was, I thought, extraordinarily gracious, given he politically disagreed with almost everything Charlie Kirk stood for. Notwithstanding that, Rob Reiner just got brutally murdered, along with his wife, it appears, by their son, who's had many years of battling drug addiction and homelessness, and appears to have gone crazy and stabbed them both to death in the most barbaric of circumstances, is now under arrest with a $4 million bail. Donald Trump has just posted this. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. You know, I've got to say, Cenk, that just crosses every line of just basic human decency to me. Yeah, Rob Reiner was murdered last night by his troubled, unhinged son. And to make political capital, and what angers me about it is there was all the outrage from Trump supporters, rightly, when the left mocked Charlie Kirk after he was murdered. And I thought we'd reached a kind of consensus that this, whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable. That when people get murdered, you just show basic respect. And it's just happened as we came on air. And I just thought we've got to start with this, because when you're the most powerful man in the world, listen, everyone knows I've known Trump a long time. But this is one of those times when many times he's been like this when big public figures have died. I remember it with John McCain. I remember it with Colin Powell. And each time I just wince at the lack of basic decency. What is your reaction to that?
Well, you saw that I came on here and I was brokenhearted when Charlie Kirk was killed. And I condemned the people celebrating it because, my God, if you're part of the peace movement, you're on the left, et cetera. We're supposed to be for nonviolence more than anybody else. So, and that was disappointing at that time. And then Donald Trump, among others, said it was the most outrageous thing they'd ever seen. For him to do it now to Rob Reiner, I mean, and for what? For what? I mean, did this guy advocate for some heinous thing? Not at all. And here's what I want people to understand about Rob Reiner. So he was obviously an enormous figure in Hollywood. Some of the movies that we all love, like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, etc., right? But on top of that, here's something that no one could argue with. Rob Reiner was a true American patriot. He loved this country. Now, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him on any issue, he's a guy who put his heart into this country and always tried to make it better. You could see patriots like that, whether they're on the right or the left, who deeply care about their fellow man. And Rob Reiner was definitely one of those people. He was the best of us. And to die in such a tragic way, and then to have the president of the United States rub it in and somehow make it about himself. Look, I could get angry at Donald Trump. We've all been angry at Donald Trump. But if you're on the right, more than anything else, you should just be deeply disappointed. Is this what you wanted? Is this the ha-ha, you're dead kind of mentality that you wanted? It sounded like after Charlie died that you really, really didn't want that you thought it was a terrible thing to do.
Well,
so
that's the
excuses.
Point. Yeah, look, that's the point, Gillian, that I would make, is it's going to be very interesting to me what people on the conservative right in America say by way of their reaction to what Donald Trump has said here. Because if there's any support for this from MAGA, from his supporters, his friends, from anyone, then it flies completely in the face of that whole debate after Charlie Kirk, when so many on the left behaved disgustingly I remember calling it out at the time. And then here, the idea that he was murdered because of something to do with his views of Donald Trump, which is complete nonsense. It's. I'm not just disappointed. I'm angry with it.
I completely agree with you and Cenk here. I will say that when I woke up and learned about this, it was on Brandon Tatum's Instagram, and he actually showed the clip of you talking to Rob Reiner. So my hope is that any reasonable person on the right or the left finds political violence disgusting, any support of it disgusting. And I'm with both you and Cenk. There's zero pushback over here. I'm extremely disappointed in the way Trump
it's not even,
this.
There's not even a suggestion it's political violence in this case. Right? We don't know why the son did this.
Well, either way, if Trump was trying to imply that it was because of Trump derangement syndrome, any violence of any kind,
I don't think he was.
Reprehensible. I'm not quite sure exactly what he was trying to imply, but I'm disappointed by his response. I have yet to see anybody on the right endorse that statement or celebrate the death of Rob Reiner. I certainly hope we don't, and I promise you that I would absolutely condemn anybody who does that.
Right. Let me bring Wajah in. I want to play a clip. This is another clip from the interview I did with him. I spoke to him for 45 minutes, literally in mid-September. It was a great interview, and I was very struck, actually, by the more mollifying tone that he took throughout this interview about Trump, who he has been very critical of in the past. There's no question. He's ranted away about Trump like many in Hollywood have done. But in that interview, he struck a very different tone. And here's him talking about Trump and the fact the left kept calling him Hitler. Senator Ted Cruz has come out and said that people should stop using the Nazi rhetoric. And I feel very strongly about this. I think that you can absolutely go after Donald Trump in an aggressive way, but calling him Hitler or calling his supporters Nazis, I think crosses every acceptable line.
It doesn't get you where you want to be. I don't really know very many things that I agree with him on, but I also feel that if you go name calling like that, it's not going to get you what you want. You have to rally people around the things that you agree with that are in disagreement with Donald Trump. And to me, the one area that, again, we both agree on is the freedom of speech and in the Constitution, First Amendment.
There's an irony there with Jahat about the name calling, because I don't know what Donald Trump thinks he'll achieve with this rant about Rob Reiner, as his body is still warm from this brutal murder. But whatever he thinks it will achieve, it will only, I think, anger and disappoint a lot of Americans, if not all Americans. And I just don't understand why he would use his gigantic platform so soon after someone is murdered to do this.
So till then, very brief today. Myself, Only Radio here at CornerSpeak. Be good, be safe, be creative. Better times. We out. And we're so close to 2026 as well.